Hey, how's it going everyone? In video games, a lot is taken into consideration, but one of the aspects that we always expect from games is some sort of realism, from realistic graphics to realistic in-game mechanics that help us get a more immersive feeling while playing. In today's video, I'll give you my top 10 games with the most realistic graphics so far. Number 1. Red Dead Redemption 2. This game puts you in the shoes of Arthur Morgan, and when playing as him, you get to explore an open-world environment featuring a fictionalized version of the Western, Midwestern, and Southern United States in 1899. While doing so, you'll get to experience the innovation Rockstar Games brought to the table with this game. The graphics are still praised as some of the most realistic till this day, and the gameplay mechanics expand the realism of the game even further. You can witness or take part in random events encountered from exploring the game world. These include ambushes, crime committed by other people, pleas for assistance, ride-by shootings, public executions, and animal attacks. For example, as you explore the Wild West, you can find specific people in distress. If you decide to help them, they may be thankful and may reward you if you cross them again. Hunting animals also plays a major role in the game, providing food, income, and materials for crafting items. When hunting, you need to take into account several factors, including the choice of weapon and shot placement, which affect the quality of the meat and pill, and subsequently the price traders are willing to pay for them. For spot number 2 on this list, Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War. Black Ops Cold War was released in 2020. This first-person shooter story is set in the early 1980s, featuring a CI operative, Russell Adler, and his mission to end the extremist USSR organization. Call of Duty games have always made an impression with the storyline and narrative with the past games. However, Black Ops Cold War features one of the best graphics for a game. The story and narrative altogether make the game one of the best games of 2020. Interestingly enough, the setting design and the lighting make Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War look like a 3D movie, but it's especially during the nighttime missions where the game feels closer to real life. Weapons recoil and the voice acting of the characters in the game are also a huge step up from the previous Call of Duty games. For spot number 3 on this list, The Last of Us Part 2. The Last of Us Part 2 is a post-apocalyptic game published by Sony Interactive Entertainment. It's an action-adventure game set in a world where the human race becomes infected with a deadly fungi called Cordyceps. This game's story revolves around the rivalry between the characters as the remaining humans fight for their lives. Talking about a specific scenario in the game where the character explores an abandoned arcade complex. The detailing of in-game elements makes the game too lifelike. On a side note, the story of the game was nice, except for one major change that developers decided to make that threw us off a bit, but the game's graphics and in-game mechanics made up for the stupid change to the story. For spot number 4 on the list, Forspoken, an open-world game that puts you in the shoes of Frey Holland, a young woman suddenly transported from Earth to the mythical world of Athia after wishing to just see a world without hate and pain. The graphics and physics effects in this game look top-notch. We're still waiting on the game to release to try it, but the graphics and gameplay we've seen on the internet so far look fantastic. Of course, this transition between worlds gives Frey magical powers that she'll need to navigate this new world safely. We saw her fighting huge dragons and giant four-legged creatures using those powers, and the graphical effects implemented really show the beauty of the fighting style that the developers chose for the game. I've done a video before about what we know so far about the game. I'll leave a link to that video in the description box for you to check it out. For spot number 5 on this list, Project Eve. One of the most surprising revelations at the September 2021 PlayStation Showcase was the announcement of Project Eve. Despite the fact that it comes from a relatively unknown studio named Shift Up Corporation, this action game, which was clearly influenced by the likes of Bayonetta, Devil May Cry, and 2018's God of War, boasts amazing aesthetics and spectacular set pieces. In contrast to many other games shown in the showcase, we were able to see a significant amount of gameplay. This is everything we know about Project Eve so far. It should whet your appetite, if it piqued your curiosity during the PlayStation Showcase. And of course, the graphics in-game look stunning. Lighting looks too realistic. The effects that weapons cause when swinging them or attacking enemies look stunning as well. For spot number 6 on this list, God of War Ragnarok. I had to include God of War Ragnarok in this list. Before I tell you why it's on the list, check out my video about it, which will be in the description box to check out everything we know so far about it. God of War's previous 2018 release was very good looking. The voice acting was perfect, and the combat effects we saw were amazing. God of War Ragnarok is now adding more to the immersion of the game since it will be utilizing the PS5's full power, which will give the developers more room to explore new options in terms of graphical intensity. The teaser gameplay trailer released for it recently showcases a lot of new improvements. While subtle, we cannot complain. The previous God of War game raised the bar so high we barely can wish for anything new in God of War Ragnarok. This game is set to release later this year, and it's one of the games that we're desperately waiting for. For spot number 7 on this list, gonna have to go with Resident Evil Village. Resident Evil Village is a direct sequel to the 2017's Resident Evil 7, but takes a very different direction to its predecessor, namely the fact that this time round, instead of fighting against various mutated zombies, you're now dealing with more famous enemies like werewolves and vampires. It takes place in a remote village in a Transylvanian part of Europe, hence the title of the game, where previous protagonist Ethan Winters once again finds himself in a similar situation as Resident Evil 7. Instead of searching for your missing wife, you're now looking for your kidnapped daughter, a new addition to the Winters household. Just like before, Capcom has returned with the photorealistic style that it introduced in Resident Evil 7, and somehow manages to turn it up to 11. This may be the best the Resident Evil series has ever looked, and I'm not just talking about the graphics themselves here, even the models, with the immensely varied types of enemies you'll face, and the distinctive locations of each main region, down to the incredibly smooth animations themselves, are all immaculate. The levels and areas themselves are so incredibly detailed as well, with many of the areas feeling cluttered and littered with objects, with the detailing of the walls in Castle Dimitrescu being a real standout here, and it all goes a long way to enhance the immersion. There are only a few games to this day that have achieved that level of quality, and I'm so happy to see games adopting more techniques into the facial and motion capture to really make the worlds and characters within them feel alive and lived in. For spot number 8 on the list, Ghostwire Tokyo. Ghostwire Tokyo has not one, but two protagonists. Akito is the lone corporeal survivor of the mysterious fog that turned Shibuya into a literal ghost town, and the protagonist was in a bad place even before the spirits hit the fan. And Akito, your character, is possessed by this second protagonist. While this may sound like a bad thing, it's actually not. Having him by your side gives you special magical abilities that you'll use throughout the game. These magical abilities are actually what makes the game so damn nice. They have some of the best physics and particle effects I've ever seen in a while, and the setting of the game was a very good choice. Tokyo is a stunning looking city in real life, and especially at nighttime. I'll be honest with you, nighttime, rain, reflections, these are the most abused graphical settings because they always make any game stand out, but still, Ghostwire Tokyo implemented these mechanics perfectly. For spot number 9 on this list, I went with Battlefield 1. Battlefield has always been a game that brings the best looks with it, not counting Battlefield 2042 of course. Battlefield 1 was very great at showing the effects of war on the world, with the starting level looking like a graphics teaser trailer. The smoke, lighting, and explosion effects applied looked very good, and the gameplay mechanics helped increase the immersion in game. The game also showed better damage to soldiers than ever before. Soldiers would scream if they're about to die or when they charge you. Looking at dying soldiers screaming because of pain is sometimes disturbing, but from a perspective of realism, it's just perfect. This game is a killer and for a reason. If you haven't played it yet, I would really recommend buying it. Last but not least, for spot number 10 on this list, I went with Uncharted 4. Uncharted 4 brought a lot of new features to the gaming world, the best of them being the graphics. The characters in the game were designed so nicely that they were almost identical to real life. I know that this sounds like an exaggeration, but still, when you take a look at how the game looked like, you'd be surprised. But when you know that this game was made for the PS4 and everything you see in most gameplay footage online is showcased live on a PS4, you'd be amazed. This game is always worth getting back to, and honestly, I wouldn't finish my top 10 list of realistic looking games without it. Now, this is it for today's video on the top 10 games with most realistic graphics so far. I would love to hear about your personal favorite realistic looking games down in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed the video, get subscribed for more daily content, and I'll see you tomorrow with a new one. Enjoy.